Well, hello again. Bob Johnson with PK&W Model Works coming at you with another video. This time, let me check my notes here, but this time I want to talk about models and your train layout as an illusion. Now, what does that mean? At a certain level, we want people who look at our models, people who look at our layouts, to accept that this is a real miniature world, right? We want them to buy into the illusion that this is a real little world. And they have to suspend their disbelief that it's miniature to kind of succumb to our illusion, right? We want them to step into that world. And so I want to talk about, in this video and in other videos to come, I want to talk about various ways that we can do this. Now, I owe a debt of gratitude to Joan Bettiger and her podcast, which is called Her Shrink Ray Eye. And I've talked about Joan's podcast before. And on May 13th of 2026, she did a podcast called The Miniature as Controlled Illusion, and that really triggered some of my thinking here. There's not a lot of direct points that are the same here that I owe Joan thanks for, but the seminal idea about the miniature as illusion came from Joan, so thank you, Joan, and I recommend you check out her podcast and have a listen to that yourself. She does a much deeper dive into this and the psychology of miniatures as illusion. So again, as I said, there's many aspects of this, and I'll cover some other things in subsequent videos. But in today's video, I want to cover what good photographs teach us about composition that can help with creating signature scenes and building our illusion. Then I want to talk about how this thinking translates into a model railroad scene. And we're going to look at two different photographs of a similar scene, a bridge scene, that is executed in two different ways, and how that affects our eye movement and how that affects our focus and looking at the message that the builder wants us to receive. And third, I want to talk about what this means for layout backdrops. So here we go. The first portion of this presentation is about what photographs can teach us about scene composition. The picture on the scene the picture on the screen rather is a photograph I took somewhere in Southern California, I think Cajon Pass. And I think it demonstrates the principles of a good railroad photograph that relate to a model railroad scene. A good photograph and a good scene, in my view, needs to have a foreground, a middle ground where the primary subject is located, and a background. The point here is that the detail and the action needs to be what it is that you're emphasizing. Now, on a layout, that could very well be moving trains, and the fact that they're moving obviously will draw the viewer's eye. However, it won't always be a moving train, and even if it is a moving train, it needs to be properly located in the scene. Now, the foreground needs to have a little bit of action, and the background needs to have a little bit of action, a little bit of interest, but not overwhelming the central image, the most important thing that you're trying to convey. So color, detail need to be reduced, especially in the background, because as we know, as things get further away, colors become more muted and details are lost. As an example, look at the green colors in the foreground in this image and the green images on the hills in the distance at the skyline. They're very gray in the background, so the colors really diminish. So you want your background to be duller, not as colorful as your foreground images. So I think this image works great. In the foreground, you've got a little splash of color with the flowers, but your eye doesn't really come to rest a long time on those. You've got some clouds in the background and some distant hills, but again, You're used to seeing those. Your eye doesn't really focus on them. And hopefully your eye comes back to the train, the highly detailed train, the colorful train in the middle of the image. So that is what we're looking for. So another example is this shot, perhaps taken on the same day, I'm not sure, but certainly taken in the same area. And again, the principal subject, these UP locomotives, is in the center of the screen. It's in the middle distance. In the foreground, we have some rock formations, which provide a little bit of interest. There's a little bit of some handrails by this kind of bridge, but it's interesting, but only briefly. And in the background, there's a distant structure. There's a hillside / mountainside, but it lacks detail. It's in the distance, and so your eye comes back again to the main subject of the image, which is this train. These are principles that we should be able to follow when we're doing signature scenes on our layout. When we're doing something that we want our viewers to be able to focus upon and to learn something from, appreciate, whatever it is, but you're trying to control the illusion and get them to look at something that you want them to look at. We're now going to apply this thinking to a typical model railroad scene. And I'm going to show you a picture, and I want you to assume that the modeler wants the audience to focus on the bridge model that's in this photograph. And when I first show you the image, I want you to concentrate on how your eyes move and where, if anywhere, your eyes settle in this picture. Are you confused and are your eyes wandering around, or are you focusing on the bridge, which is what the modeler wants you to focus on? So here comes the image, and again, I will be quiet when you take a look at this image and focus on your eye movement. Here we go. Okay, so where did your eyes move when you were looking at this image? Could they settle down at all? Mine could not, frankly. But did the modeler achieve their objective of getting you to focus on the bridge, or was more of your attention focused on all these colorful boats in the foreground or the detailed leaves in the background? This scene is obviously, this is typical of quite a few model railroad layouts that are packed with detail. And I think the objective of those layouts is to just be incredibly rich with detail. Even the Franklin and South Manchester and other amazing layouts are packed with, especially ones that are craftsman structure oriented, are just packed with details. There are stories everywhere. It's a feast for the eyes, but your eyes just don't know where to settle. And there's so much to absorb that if there is a message, it can get lost. It's just too loud. It's just too much going on. Did they create an illusion here, or does it look too toy-like? I think that's the question you have to ask. You may be happy with the toy-like presentation. I'm not trying to diminish that. If that's what you want, it's a lot of fun. For the casual viewer, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Please don't take offense if you like a colorful, busy layout. But I don't think it really supports the illusion that this is a real world as well as this next image. So for this next image, I am going to, again, give you a moment to do the eye movement test. So when this image is presented to you, please, and I'm going to be quiet during this image presentation, and I want you to think about where your eyes are going in this picture. Where do you end up focusing, and what is it that you see first and foremost? So here we go. So, the same bridge, It's still got a boat in the water, but the background is blurred out, and there's only one boat, and it's not a colorful boat. And honestly, if I was doing this scene, I would probably have the boat not directly under the bridge, but rather closer to the viewer in the foreground. But what do you think? Has the modeler, in this case, achieved their objective? Or is there more attention being placed on the bridge? Obviously. Is this more of an illusion? Has the illusion been preserved better here, and this is less toy-like? I think the answer to that is yes. I think this is so that's kind of the point I want to make here, that so foreground, middle ground, background, again going back to our photograph analysis. The foreground, we have this one boat. It's interesting. It doesn't hold our gaze for too long. The background has a little bit of interest, but it's not really riveting us, and so we are forced almost to focus on the bridge. The illusion is being controlled. I think that's the lesson here. That's what you may want to achieve if you want people to focus on particular aspects of your layout. As I indicated at the beginning, I also wanted to briefly talk about what this means for backdrops. And I think what it means is that photo backdrops are not the best idea necessarily. They are often too detailed, but I think they can work if they have muted colors, which would be appropriate for something in the background, and if the details are less obvious. They don't have to be as blurry as the background in this photograph. But also, I want to take you back to one of those photographs. The background is still important. We need to have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background for the view of this scene. Just like for a photograph to work, we need to have something in the foreground, something in the background, and something that is the core of our attention. But the foreground and the background, right, they just need to lack detail and bold colors. These things diminish, especially for the background. And so on the back, as you get further and further away, details become less obvious, colors become more muted. So even if you use a photo backdrop, you need to make sure that you're following those principles and that your backdrop is muted in color and doesn't have a lot of detail in it to draw the eye into the backdrop. So I hope this was helpful. Now, our example, of course, was about a bridge scene and a bridge model. But you might want to emphasize something completely different. And so you need to obviously adapt these principles to the scene that you're working on. But what is it that you want layout visitors to come away with when they look at a particular scene on your layout? Do you want them to notice a signature piece of architecture that's unique to the railroad that you're portraying on your layout? Is that what you want them to see? Or maybe it's something else entirely. Think about what it is that you really want visitors to see. Then you can use this controlled illusion, these principles that we've talked about here, in order to get visitors to come away from a scene with what it is that you want them to see. Maybe you want them to see your really cool track work in that area, so you need to come up with a way for them to focus on that. Just think about what it is that you want for each scene on your layout. Some scenes you may want to be fun, just to be a visual potpourri with all kinds of things for people to focus on and just have fun. That's great. But others, you might want to you might have a message. You might want to convey some specific information and have people come away with a certain information, understanding, or feeling. And if you want those things to happen, then you need to try to control the illusion in order to deliver that message. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas, if you've ever used something like this, how well it worked. I'd love to hear about it from you. And stay tuned for more similar content in the future. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe so you can be sure to come along as we explore these things and as I build my layout. So until next time, Bob Johnson with PK&W Model Works signing off. Keep on modeling.